Greetings everyone. Welcome to the course of Wheel Alignment, Steering System and Steering Control. The objectives of this course are to study about the various wheel alignment related issues and definitely about wheel alignment, to understand the steering system of the automobile system and to understand the suspension system of the automobile system, to study the component of the steering system and their configuration, to identify the need of electronic control in power steering and its importance. Next, to study about the working of hydraulic power steering system. The topic we're gonna cover in this course is wheel alignment along with the steering system, power assisted steering system, hydraulic power assisted steering system and electronic power assisted steering system, that is EPS. Let's get started with the wheel alignment. But to understand the wheel alignment in depth, we should have a little idea about the suspension. We should have knowledge about the suspension system and spring. So I'm gonna ask you guys, what do you understand by the term suspension system? Okay, I'll tell you. Suspension system is a system of tires, spring, shock absorber, and linkage that connects vehicle to its wheel. In other words, we can say suspension system as a whole system is a connection, a link between the wheel and the entire body, the entire frame that connect. It's a link that connects the wheel to the complete vehicle. Okay. Suspension system also allows relative motion between vehicle and the wheel, and here we are talking about the vertical motion of the wheels, not rolling motion. Okay, so vertical motion, whenever there's a bump or there's a speed breaker, wheels go up or down according, if there's a drop or speed breaker, but a body does not move with the suspension. So there is a relative motion between the suspension and the body. So it is the wheel in the body, it is only possible because of the suspension system. Okay, suspension system supports both road holding and ride quality. There are two very important terms, road holding and ride quality. And trust me, these two terms are completely odd to each other. We'll discuss more about these terms later in the course. Okay. The tuning of the suspension, in other words, wheel alignment, involves finding the right compromise between these two, the road holding and the ride quality. Okay, we'll discuss more about it. It is important for a suspension system to keep the road wheel in contact with the road surface. Okay, it is very important. Why it is important? Because all the road or ground forces acting on the vehicle, all the forces like traction, friction, all the forces, or the forces going through the from the engine to the road, is go through that little contact patch between tire and the road. So it is very important to keep the contact of to keep tire and the road in contact with all the time to get better driving performance. Okay, next it is application of suspension system again. Okay, next is suspension system protects the vehicle itself from damage and wear. Definitely suspension system absorbs the jerk, so it's a protect the vehicle from damage and wear. This statement is self-explanatory. Okay, now let's get back to the wheel alignment. Okay, so all four wheelers, after having have been driven for a certain distance, are supposed to undergo the wheel alignment. Okay. But what is wheel alignment and what will happen to our car if we don't do it? Let's explore. At first glance, all the wheels of the vehicle looks perfectly straight. You can see here all the wheels looks perfectly straight and vertical, which is logical also, and it's supposed to be straight and vertical definitely, but in dynamic condition, in running condition, it's supposed to be straight and vertical, that is logical, and it's supposed to be like this. But still, to get the better performance, to improve the performance, all car makers specify some predefined angles. We'll discuss more about these angles to the wheel of the car, which is sometimes visible, means it is visible in a performance car, in a track car, but it is not visible in our daily commute car because it is very small. And why it is small, we'll discuss more about it later. Okay, it has to be small in daily commute car. Why, we'll tell more about it, but it is visible in track car. Okay, yeah. So let's go back further. Advantages and use of wheel alignment, this is important. At today's increased driving speed, it is the most important to have swift and positive response from the steering system. This statement tells us that wheel alignment also supports steering system along with the suspension system. It depends on the suspension system and support steering system also. Okay, to accomplish this, to get a good performance from steering system, the wheel must be aligned. There must be alignment between the wheels. So this is important. Okay, it allows the wheel to roll without scuffing, dragging, or slipping in between different type of road condition. Now I think everyone is familiar with slipping of the wheel. So we can prevent this slipping with a better wheel alignment. Okay, proper alignment has some advantages which is on the screen, which are greater safety in driving condition. Okay, it's pretty obvious if there's no slipping, if we can avoid slipping, dragging, then we will get a better uh, performance, better control on our vehicle. So it provides us better great safety, easier easier steering. Now if your wheel are aligned, properly aligned, then it is very easy to steer your vehicle. It is easy to maneuver. It is easy to steer your vehicle because uh, you will get proper response from a steering wheel. Okay, that is important. Third one is longer tire life. Now we'll have a good discussion about on this particular statement, but I just want to know if anyone have any thoughts on this particular statement, that how wheel alignment affects the tire life. Just share it with us right now. Okay, let's continue. Reduction in fuel consumption. It's definite that if your entire engine power is converted into rolling motion without any slipping, then definitely you will get a better efficiency, better fuel consumption, less strain on the system and suspension component. If there's wheel are properly aligned as it's supposed to be according to the car makers, then there must be very less play between the components, and there will be no relative motion, no uh, unwanted relative motion between the components. That's why, as a result, very less strain. Okay, yeah. Now here are some basic terminologies that we're gonna use in entire course. So I just wanted to you guys get familiar with this term because we're gonna use these terms again and again. Okay, so the first one is sprung mass and unsprung mass. If anybody knows about it, then you can share your thoughts right now. Okay, here you can see here this in this picture, sprung mass, the mass of all components that move do not move when suspension is displaced. Wait, let me modify my statement again. Mass of the component that do not move much, that do not move much when the suspension displays, because means what I want to say here is, and which type of motion I'm talking about here is the vertical motion again. There will be a vertical motion with on the wheels or on the suspension when there's a loop or there's a speed breaker or something, there's a pothole, then there will be a up vertical motion of your wheels and your suspension system, but this body will not move much with these components. Okay, so the mass of the body which does not move with these components is known as sprung mass. Okay, why I'm telling you here is much because some motion will be transferred but not complete motion. This is very important. Okay, next is unsprung mass. The mass of the component that moves with the suspension will be considered as a unsprung mass. Now let's talk about some example of sprung mass. That would be frame, engine, passenger that do not move with the spring and wheels. And unsprung mass will be brake assembly, your entire wheel, axle, and everything will be considered as a sprung mass. Now there are something which is called as a partially sprung mass or partially unsprung mass, that is a part of suspension system. For example, in a bike there's a swing arm, okay, that connects the wheel with your body, with your chassis frame. So that can be considered as a partial sprung mass and partial unsprung mass. Here I want to add one more thing, that whenever we are designing a new vehicle, that we will try to keep unsprung mass as less as possible. We try to minimize the unsprung mass. Why? Because that allow optimal suspension operation. So for to get the better performance from suspension, sprung mass supposed to be as less as possible. Okay, that we need to keep in our mind when we are designing a vehicle. Okay, next is bump travel. Again I told you, not the vehicle body, the unsprung mass will not much move in the vertical motion because of pothole or something, but there will be a little transfer. So that little transfer, that vertical displacement of a sprung mass will be known as bump. Okay, let's go further. Next is roll. Okay, now let's consider yourself sitting in a car and taking a turn at little high speed. You might feel a force. Suppose this is a car. Okay, you might feel a force that push you outside to the circle. I mean, you might have felt it sometimes. So why it is happening? Because this force that pushing you outside is known as centrifugal force, and because of this force there is a mass transfer. There's a mass transfer, and the mass transfer is on the outer wheel of the vehicle from inner wheel. Because of this mass transfer, suspension is kind of a spring, so the load on the outer wheel is increased. That's why spring get compressed, and load from inner wheel has been released a little, so that's why spring get expands a little. Okay, so that's why there is a rolling motion which can be viewed from front, and there will be a seesaw type of motion. You can see there is a force, there's a too much mass and there's a less mass, so there is a seesaw type of motion, and this motion is known as roll, and this motion occur along with the center, and this center is known as roll. It is very important term, roll, to find out in a calculation of suspension we use roll, center and roll. It is a very significant term. Okay, next is pitch. Exactly like roll, pitch occurs when we accelerate a vehicle or we apply a brake. Whenever we accelerate a vehicle little hard, then we feel a force pushing us backward. On the other hand, if we apply the brake, there's a force which pushes us outward. Okay, so this force, because of this force, again there's a mass transfer. Suppose there's a condition of high acceleration, then there will be a mass transfer to the back, too much force, too much mass on extra mass on the rear side will compress the rear suspension, and little release of mass will because of the little release, the front suspension springs will expand. Because of this, again there will be a seesaw type of motion, and this motion occur again along with the center, and because of this center, this the center will be known as pitch center, and the motion will be known as pitching. Okay, these two terms are very important, pitching and rolling. Let's go further. The alignment geometry. Okay, this alignment geometry is like, I've already told you that car manufacturer uh, align the vehicle, give some angle, some particular angle, significant angle to the wheels, okay, to the wheel assembly, and for alignment definitely. So the proper for the proper alignment of suspension and steering system depends on these kind of angle. The angle that we are talking about, first is camber angle, second is caster angle. Here you can see the camber angle, caster angle, toe in toe out, thrust align line, it's not here, steering axis inclination is here, turning radius and tracking. We'll we'll discuss about all the term in depth in the later course. You can see here camber angle, we can view it from front, it is important. Front roll is also can be viewed from front. Second is caster angle, can be viewed from side, that is also important. Third is top toe in, can be viewed from top. And then SAE SAI, steering axis inclination, also known as KPI, kingpin axis inclination, that is also can be viewed from front. We'll discuss more about these terms in a later discussion. Okay, let's talk about camber angle first. Looking from the front of the car, the camber is inward or outward tilting of the wheel. You can see here inward or outward tilting of the wheel at the top. The top of the wheel tilt inward or outward as compared to uh, to the bottom. So this angle, this is known as camber angle. So what is camber angle exactly? The angle between the vertical line and the line of the tilting center line of tilted center line of the wheel is known as camber angle. It can be negative or positive. If the if the wheel is tilted outside, then the camber angle will be considered as a positive, and if it is a tilted inside, then it will be a negative camber angle. You can see here. Okay, so yeah, in this diagram you can see there's a front view, it can be viewed from front. Again, this is very important, this is a zero camber situation. Camber in, the wheels are tilted inside. Positive, the wheels are tilted outside. So this is very important. Okay, so now we understand what is camber angle. Camber angle is an angle between the vertical line and the center line of a tilted center line of the wheel, which can be viewed from front of the car. Okay, next, why camber angle, why we use camber angle? So here is the explanation for the camber angle. Again, whenever we are taking a turn, so as we discussed, that there will be a centrifugal force and another force known as centripetal force. Okay, because of this centrifugal force, this is a situation of this is a situation of this car taking turn. Okay, so there will be a centrifugal force, and centrifugal force will work in this direction. Centripetal petal force will work in this direction, but because of centrifugal force, a frictional force will work in a opposite direction. You can see here, whenever when car is taking turn, there's a force will work on the opposite to centrifugal force, frictional force, that is. Because of this tilting, there's a deformation in the wall of the tire. You can see this deformation here, which is not what we want. It is not what we want. Why we don't want it? Because of this we will lose the contact patch of the tire, and definitely there will be a sudden wear. There will be a premature wear in the tire. You can see here that reduce the tire life also. So this deformation reduce the contact patch of the tire and the road. This is not what we wanted, so we want to avoid it. And just to avoid this, we will give a little inward negative camber angle to the vehicle. And again, just consider the same situation. When there's a force work in this direction, then this will settle down. This will settle down like here, and this is how it will work. So that is why we give a little negative camber angle to prevent this deformation of the tire, and reduce the and just to keep a firm contact patch between tire and the road. So this is the reason why we use camber angle. Okay, now as I told you, uh, in performance car there's a no, too much there's a requirement of turning performance. Okay, that's why you will see a lot of too much camber angle, a visible camber angle on the front wheels of any formula car kind of thing. That gives a better uh, direction stability and handling while taking a turn because of the better contact patch. But negative camber and means, of course, it increase the handling in the corner, but in some way it reduces straight line performance, because in the normal condition, you can see in the normal condition, in the straight line the the wheel will be in this situation. So definitely we are not getting proper contact patch in a straight line, so that reduces straight line performance, acceleration and braking also. And also it can reduce the life of tire that we discussed, because the load will be transferred from a smaller contact patch. There will be a less we will get less life of tire. So that's the thing. Okay, but in performance car, in formula car, we don't think about these things. They just change the vehicle, the tire in after 1 or 2 laps. We cannot do it in the real life. That's why the camber angle is very less in not which is not visible in daily commute car, so that we can get a better tire life and also straight line stability. Okay, now talking about the positive camber, where you have you seen the positive camber in real life? I mean, it's very it's not very easy to find a positive camber, because you won't get very often positive camber vehicles seen on the road. But there are vehicles which has not good suspension, and which usually used for loading purpose might have positive camber. You can see, again, the problem with the positive camber is, whenever we will take the turn, then it will tilt again a little more, and we will get much more lesser contact patch. But here, whenever we are talking about a loading vehicle, so in unloaded condition the situation will be like this. But because of the load on the vehicle, the position of the wheel in the dynamic position will be, the wheel will be straight. Wheel will become straight load because of the load of on the axle. Okay, so this is, in the dynamic condition we will get a straight we'll get a better tire contact, which is what we want exactly. That's why we might have a little positive camber in auto rickshaws and all. Okay, so that's it for today. Guys, we will continue from here in the next session. Thank you so much.